I mean, okay, calm down, boy. Like, chill out. It was just a letter. You know, I'm one of those people who always complains that I don't have any spare time. And over the weekend, I decided to use said rare spare time scouring the Royal Archives, as you do. But I'm glad I did, because within this archive was a treasure trove of correspondence between Queen Victoria herself and her beloved Prince Albert that were digitized and made available to the public in 2021, I believe, as part of the Prince Albert digitization project. And so, as a palate cleanser from perhaps the fakest royal love story ever told,
was he nice?
I thought we'd all leave our modern problems behind, shut out the bad news and chaos, and travel back in time, all the way back to 1836, to a time when a teenage Princess Alexandrina Victoria and Prince Albert first started courting each other. The first letter we're going to look at is a letter from Prince Albert to Princess Victoria regarding his recent visit to Kensington Palace, sent on the 27th of June of 1836. My dear cousin, in hope
on your indulgence with my bad English writing, I dare address you some lines to express you my sincerest thanks for all the kindness you had for me during our stay in London. The days we passed at Kensington were surely the most agreeable I passed a long time ago. Although we were in a world quite new and quite strange for us, I felt myself as at home. And all this we are indebted to you and to the great kindness of the dear aunt. I beg your pardon that I am speaking so much. I fear I talk more than Bolly.
And then he signs it off in French. It's funny because it's easy to forget that they were only 17, and obviously 17-year-olds don't really talk like this anymore, and certainly don't have this penmanship, which I'll tell you, I can read Albert's penmanship, but Queen Victoria, especially when in her younger years when she was a princess, you'll see what I mean. But it's just so adorable and very much like a teenager for him to apologize for speaking so much and for his English, because he was German, so English wasn't really his first language. The next letter is in response from Princess Victoria. So this was a year before her coronation, I believe. So still a princess. And I actually thought this video was never going to happen when I really looked at her handwriting, because, I mean, get a look at it yourself. She probably would have been a doctor in a different world. At one point, I tried to cheat and use the assistance of an online image to text converter. And I mean, have a look yourself. My dearest Albert, so far so good. Fedo, bears, just as fours. Dwick you with Chinese alphabet. Falliner and Wenke, you for the like, ere the bandem of the artistes de la opera station, received very kind letter of the 27th Guerney, for which I thanks very much. It were was agreeable, surparing pleasure, groot me your des. Groot me. I think I'm gonna start using that. Now, thankfully for us in this video, I can actually read most of what she's trying to say in this letter, so let's go ahead. My dearest Albert, just as I was going to write you a few lines to thank you for the amusing likeness you were kind enough to send of the artistes de l'opera station. Station? De l'opera station? I don't know whether it's Italian or meant to be French. I received your very kind letter of the 27th of June, for which I thank you very much. It was a most agreeable surprise and has given me great pleasure. Believe me always, my dearest cousin, your very affectionate cousin, Victoria. Again, I just love how mature they sounded even at 17, but there were still hints of youthfulness coming through because they were kids. They were only 17. We then get another letter on the 12th of July, so a couple of weeks since Victoria's letter, from Albert relating to his time in Brussels. Now, again, you'll see that Prince Albert's handwriting was far more agreeable to my eyes, and I'm sure yours as well, than his dearest Victoria. My dearest Victoria. It is
It is
not
not in my power to tell you how much pleasure you have afforded me by your kind letter of the 30th. Accept my sincerest thanks for it. I beg you to allow me to write sometime a few lines to you. Give my love to my dear aunt, and believe me ever to remain, my dear Victoria, your most affectionate cousin, Albert.
They've also sent each other more than a few letters for their birthdays. So the first one is a letter from Princess Victoria to Prince Albert on the occasion of his birthday on the 21st of August, 1836. My dearest Albert, I must write you a few lines to wish you many happy returns of your birthday and every possible happiness you can desire. I wish that you could be with us, or rather, we with you, on that day. I very often think of you and dear Ernest. Ernest was Prince Albert's brother, and of the very happy days we passed together. It's so innocent, it's so innocent and so different to our current way of life. She signs off by saying, pray, dear Albert, accept the accompanying little seal and wear it sometimes in recollection of your very affectionate cousin, Victoria. And let's see what he had to say in response, because we don't have to guess. So, on the 8th of September, Albert responds and writes, My dearest Victoria,
your lines I got at my birthday have caused me the greatest pleasure.
I mean, okay, calm down, boy. Chill out. It was just a letter.
I don't know how to express you my thanks for them and the beautiful little seal which accompanied them. Once more, my sincerest thanks for your kindness. I ever remain, dearest Victoria, your faithful cousin, Albert.
Also, I completely forgot to mention that back in the day, and I've talked about this in previous videos actually, but back in the day, especially with royal matches, it was fine. It was commonplace to marry your cousin. And I understand that today, that's not really viewed upon as favorably, especially in the Western world. And some would say it's borderline incestuous. You share grandparents. But just bear in mind that this was a different time. And most importantly, this was incredibly normal in royal circles and even in the nobility, because they wanted to keep their royal and noble blood untainted by us peasants. Next, we have a letter from Prince Albert to Queen Victoria, in which he congratulates her on becoming Queen of England. And this was sent on the 26th of June, 1837. My dearest cousin,
I must write you a few lines to present you my sincerest felicitations to that great change which took place with your life. Now you are queen of the mightiest land of Europe. I wish that your reign might be long, happy, and glorious. Believe me always, Your Majesty, most obedient servant and faithful cousin, Albert.
Notice how the language has changed. Your most obedient servant. It's very mature and also still very sweet. And now if you thought that the queen, because she's now queen, was too high and mighty to wish her beloved Albert a happy birthday on that very same year of 1837, you would be wrong, because she did just that on the 25th of August of 1837. Okay, so this is one of those letters where, I'm going to try my best to decipher that handwriting again. My dearest Albert, though these lines will unfortunately not reach you on your birthday, you will certainly receive no wishes so sincere or so warm as those which your cousin now offers you. You are, and then I literally cannot read after you are. You are, I am certain, dearest Albert. Wait, I'm reading this. Quite persuaded of my sincere attachment and affection for you. Wow. This is a love letter. It's not just a birthday letter. She is confessing her love for him. I'm reading this. I've never been able to read this before. Believe me always, your most affectionate cousin and friend, Victoria. So you can see her tone hasn't changed at all since becoming queen. In fact, to me, it just sounds like she's more intent on making it clear just how important he is to her. And it's really sweet. She is think about it. This young woman was the Queen of England and the Queen of an empire, right? And she still found the time to write Albert a letter on the 14th of August, 1838. So this is the following year, apologizing for not replying to his and Ernest's letters for her birthday. Now, since I'm bringing up this letter, I suppose it makes sense to read out the letter that they sent her for her birthday. My dearest cousin, your birthday is again
approaching, and I must be far remote from you and can celebrate that rejoicing day but in distance. Though distant, I am in thoughts with you, living in the gratifying remembrance of the 24th in 1836, where we had the extreme pleasure of spending it in your company.
So they haven't seen each other for 2 years at this point, because he lived, I believe, in Coburg. There were times, he was traveling because I believe he was studying at the time as well. But basically, he wasn't in England. And so that's what they were both doing this entire time, just reliving and reminiscing in that wonderful time that they spent together. It's just so sweet. Anyways, so this was the letter that he had sent her. And so she responded apologizing for not responding to it earlier. Now let's see if I can read this. My dearest Albert, I feel so guilty for not I can't read that word. For not something your and Ernest's kind letters for my birthday. And that's about all I can read. And given that we saw how well the image to text converter worked, Groot me. Yeah, I think we're just gonna have to skip this one. Now, Queen Victoria and Prince Albert, obviously, were both also fluent in German, and they also wrote in French. So unfortunately for us, I am not a German speaker. I can't read German. I can speak it basically if I go tourist terms and ordering coffee and whatnot, but I can't understand German. And so, if I thought that the English writing was gibberish, then imagine what the German looks like to me. There are a lot of German notes though between them. Now, lucky for us, a few of them have blurbs, summaries that are translated, so we can get an idea of what they were saying. And I included these because these were short and sweet, sometimes spicy as well. Let's have a look. So on the 1st of October of 1839, Queen Victoria sent Albert a note in German saying that she is sending something amusing. She addresses the note, Dear Angel. So we've been promoted from my dearest cousin, which, look, it was obvious they were really into each other, but also very, I suppose, distant at the same time, to my dear angel. So that was pretty cute. And obviously, we're all wondering, I'm sure, what on earth did she send him that she thought would amuse him very much? Unfortunately, we don't find out, but there is another note from Prince Albert to Queen Victoria on the day of their engagement. So on the 15th of October, 1839. So I'm assuming he is in England at this point, and that's why they're sending notes rather than letters. So in this note, written in German, he thanks her for her notes to him and writes,
How is it that I deserve so much love, so much affection? I cannot get used to the reality of all that I see and hear, and have to believe that heaven has sent me an angel whose brightness shall illumine my life.
I think I'm falling in love with Prince Albert. It's magnificent to even just have the pleasure to repeat these words and hear them being said. And can you imagine teenage Victoria reading that? Oh, now the spiciness meter goes up with this note, which Queen Victoria had sent Prince Albert on the same day. This is all on their engagement day, by the way. They must have been on fire with passion on that day. She says, Dearest Albert, can you come to me alone for a moment? Your devoted V. Ooh. This is where I feel a little bit, I'm not gonna lie, I feel like a voyeur, like, okay.
Please don't haunt me.
Next we have a letter. So he's left by now. This is the 30th of November, 1839. So over a month since their engagement. He writes of missing Victoria, saying, Your dear
picture stands on my table in front of me, and I can hardly take my eyes off it.
Another note was sent from Prince Albert on the 21st of November of 1839, and the separation is starting to get to him by now. So he says, I have these days been distracted
by fresh places, fresh conditions, memories, people, events, and yet none of them can smother the painful feeling of separation.
Oh, I can just imagine how her heart would have just, swelled every time she received a note or a letter from him. It really is the love story of of the century in their time, of the 19th century. It's probably the most intense royal love story that we've ever known. Now, I included one last letter from New Year's Eve of 1839. And it's a letter from Prince Albert to the Queen. And I included it because it is so fascinating to read that Queen Victoria was incredibly hard on herself. So Prince Albert writes to the Queen in response to a letter from her. Now, I don't believe I have a copy of that letter, or it could have been written in German, and so I left it out. But he writes that he does not want her to think of herself as unworthy of him, and says, I would allow no one
in the world to say such a thing. Therefore I may not suffer it from you, for I cannot hear my dear good Victoria disparaged.
She was talking about how she's not good enough for him. And he's not the king. She's the queen. So, thinking about it from that perspective, she obviously loved him so much, but that also tells me that she was humble. She wasn't up herself. She wasn't full of herself like some other, basically semi-royals of this day and age.
Was he nice?
Now, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, as with any couple. Within the German letters were a series of admonishments from the prince to his queen about her temper and her lack of affection that she showed her children. In one letter, after admonishing the queen for her behavior during arguments, Albert writes that she can improve herself by being less preoccupied with herself. Okay, interesting. It kind of flies in the face of what I said earlier about her not being too self-important. But you can be preoccupied with yourself without being your biggest fan, without really liking yourself. So maybe he just thinks she's always in her head. And in another letter, a direct translation reads, You have
again lost your self-control quite unnecessarily. I did not say a word which could wound you, and I did not begin the conversation, but you have followed me about and continued it from room to room.
So this is an argument where she's following him around the palace.
I do my duty towards you, even though it means that life is embittered by scenes, when it should be governed by love and harmony. But you hurt me desperately, and at the same time do not help yourself.
He even offers her some parenting advice in another letter, writing, It is indeed a pity
that you find no consolation in the company of your children. The root of the difficulty lies in the mistaken notion that the function of a mother is to always be correcting, scolding, ordering them about, and organizing their activities. It is not possible to be on happy, friendly terms with people you have just been scolding, for it upsets scolder and scolded alike.
He must have been the best father. Although, I will say, in her intimate journal entries, she is very expressive about how much she loves her children. Of course, also about how much she loves Albert, but her children as well. She would write in her journal every birthday, even when her children became adults and they got married and they had their own children. She would commemorate their birthdays and write about it. And so I don't doubt that she adored her children. As they got further into the 19th century, you'll notice a shift from letter writing and handwritten notes to using the telegram, which was obviously a much more convenient form of communication. So here we have a telegram from Prince Albert to Queen Victoria on the 30th of May of 1858. And these are just a few years, by the way, before his passing in 1861. So, knowing that, it kind of, for me at least, gives it a tinge of sadness. In this one, he basically tells her he's living in Mama's room, has been to church, the museum and mausoleum, and that the weather is cold and showery. Another telegram from Prince Albert on the 4th of June, 1858. And this one you can read very clearly. Name the prince consort to the queen, as you do. I thank you for your inquiries. We keep quiet today. The king and queen are expected here shortly. Very formal telegram. I suppose that's what they were for. And then finally, this is the last one that he sent, or at least the last one available in this collection before his death. So this one was sent on the 25th of November, 1861. In fact, I think this is the last one because he basically was pretty much bedridden very shortly after this day. He just says on this one, very well. So before we close off this video, I also wanted to show you Queen Victoria's reminiscences concerning her husband, which she started writing after he died. So it's basically a book of memories. I mean, she explains it in the first page. I might as well just read it out to you. This book is a collection probably of recollections and reminiscences of that happiest of happy lives, which only lasted 22 years, and of that dearly beloved, adored, and perfect angel husband of mine, my precious Albert. It's rough. It's rough. There are a few pages with pictures as well. So here we have, from what I understand from her writing, one of her favorite miniatures of him. She writes, he wore a black velvet jacket without a cravat. Anything more beautiful, more youthfully manly and perfect never was seen. I've always known and heard that the love that Queen Victoria and Prince Albert had was legendary. And reading through these correspondences, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind how deeply, how profoundly, how passionately these two human beings loved each other. And they were really lucky because, as I mentioned earlier, usually with royal families, matches were not love matches. They were marriages of convenience, politically motivated. But this match, lucky for them, was a love match that was allowed to proceed, a love match that was deemed worthy of the Queen of England. And that's why I really, really wanted to share this, because as I said in the intro, it's a palate cleanser from all the vapid, shallow fakery that we get bombarded with from today's troublemaker, pseudo royals. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. It's a bit of a different video and style for me to make. I hope you enjoyed Zach's cameos voicing Prince Albert, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.